Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and today is 45 days since leaving Nvidia and going with AMD. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now this video is going to be a little bit differently. Just a little bit different. We're going to talk about the 3080 for a minute, and then we're going to talk about the benefits of upgrading over to AMD. Plus, some of the things that, that might be a little bit more difficult when making the transition that you're probably gonna run into over time, especially if you're online a lot and you're talking to people, you're you're expressing your feelings about switching to AMD. So first of all, let's get into this 3080 for a minute. This card is not aging well. The 3080 is not going to age well. This, Unreal Engine 5 is turning out to be a pretty, it's turning out to be a pretty heavy game engine in terms of, needing VRAM. Just needing some sort of VRAM to be able to handle most of the settings for this. You can essentially compare 3080 to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X now, and I get that PC and hard or console hardware are different in many's eyes, but we're at a point now where your PlayStation 5 and your Xbox Series X, yes, they are built on APUs, so they are more in line with what a laptop would provide, but they also have a higher 300 watt power system that powers these consoles. And RDNA 2 was actually fairly decent when it came to power draw. You were looking at for like a 6800 or 6900 XT or something, the like a 650 watt power. So I mean you're right around that you're right around that power draw. Well, actually you could probably get closer to like 6800 XT performance maybe with these consoles, just due to the VRAM or system memory that they come with. They both have 16 gigs of RAM, so you can kind of get them a little bit closer to like 6700 XT, 6800 XT, somewhere in between there when it comes to the consoles. They are being able to do like 1080p to 1440p in certain games, being able to push things and do things that we wouldn't really think was possible on these two platforms, especially with Unreal Engine 5. Now the games that come on Unreal Engine 5 for the consoles are going to be better optimized. They're going to be put together just a little bit differently. You're not going to have a whole lot of room to move around, with the settings or anything on that. But when it comes to the 3080, that hard lock on that 10 gigs of VRAM is showing every time another one of these new games launches or the spec sheets come out that this card is just not going to age well when it comes to newer content. But if you look back, honestly, if you look back and you go into like 8th gen games, if you go into some of the cross gen games that were coming out, that card is very performant. It was a very good card for that type of stuff. Racing games, first person shooters, like all of those things they're not bad. It's just when it starts to start moving forward with some of these newer games that it really starts to show you that card's not going to age well. Is it a bad card? No. I mean, if you got it at MSRP for the 3080, it's $600. There, of course you're going to be able to make that card. You're going to be able to make that card stretch. This whole series of switching from Nvidia over to AMD was never intended to just sit and talk bad about Nvidia and praise AMD. Like, I do like this AMD platform. This is pretty cool. There's a lot of things that I like far more than I did on the Nvidia side. But when it comes to the Nvidia cards, I kind of feel like Nvidia makes this product stacked, and this is more so with the 30 series card than probably any card they've had. If you look at the performance of the 30 series cards over all of these next gen games versus, like these the 3080 and under, literally powerhouse cards for 8th gen titles. The 3060 Ti that I had was awesome when I was playing like my older games on it. Really awesome card. I would be able to hit 4K. I was getting like 45 to 60 frames in like Witcher 3 with everything turned on that 3060 Ti. Being able to experience some of those older games way better than I ever seen them on a console. That was good. That was a good moment for me being able to at least kind of take a peek at what PC was doing. I wasn't completely in yet like I am now. Like I'm definitely more into PC gaming now that I've got this AMD card. But before with Nvidia, like I don't know. See, Nvidia was my first experience in PC gaming, and to be completely honest with you, had I went into PC gaming on an AMD card, I honestly feel that my experience would have been better. I wouldn't have hit so many like roadblocks, stuff like that, just due to the fact that getting into the AMD software, setting things up and doing all of that was significantly easier. But then again, maybe if I didn't have all that knowledge that I'd already been gaining on the Nvidia side, maybe that would have been different. Now, the 3080, in terms of like being able to use DLSS, and this is going to be important, obviously going forward for all of these cards, is the upscalers. We're seeing a heavy use of them in games like Remnant 2. We're seeing it in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. We're seeing like the Immortals of Avrin, the settings that you're going to need for these particular cards, and all of them are coming. I mean, they're all pretty much saying like, hey, you're going to need this upscaling technology. So I don't think this is this I feel like we're at a point with graphics cards where it's going to be less dependent on pure power and more dependent on how good the upscaling tech is for each card. Now, Nvidia can literally use all three of them. Can run DLSS, can run XeSS, can run FSR2. Your AMD cards, they'll be able to run XeSS and FSR, and then your Intel cards, like when Battle Mage comes out, stuff like that, that'll be able to run your FSR and your XeSS pretty easily. So a lot, when it comes to AMD's side, a lot's going to be kind of riding on FSR3 to be able to compete, in the high end upscaling when that becomes available sometime this year, to really help push your cards forward. And see, that's kind of where we're at right now. Like FSR2, in my opinion, is not bad. I mean, you literally have to, like with FSR2, you really have to go out of your way to find things to nitpick. With DLSS, it looks good, and most people, I don't think, are going to go out of their way to nitpick DLSS at this point. You're not going to go out of your way to be like looking for reasons to be upset with DLSS like you would with like FSR2 or XeSS. Everybody's already established that like DLSS is the best, so nobody looks very closely anymore to try to find and nitpick those problems. Whereas FSR2 and XeSS, people are still, looking for reasons to nitpick those and compare them to DLSS as some sort of standard. The 3080 card can do DLSS 2. It does not have access to DLSS 3. If it had DLSS 3, maybe that would be a different story for that card. Maybe that would be a different story for that card. Maybe it would still be a viable option going forward with some of these games. But as it sits right now, DLSS can only solve so much of that VRAM problem. Like it's almost like the same amount of VRAM that you're taking back, if you lower your resolution block every time. Then like you set your settings and then you go down on resolution and then you'll see the VRAM allocation kind of go down. So that's exactly pretty much what DLSS does. It pretty much just drops the VRAM usage a little bit. So at the end of the day, when it comes to like the 3080 guys, and I'm not gonna keep beating on this card. I mean, as much as I can, you know, drag in a lot of clicks and whatever else, I'm not gonna keep beating on it. But it is kind of a serious problem, and it's something that as much as the PC space would like something like this to actually finally humble Nvidia and make them be a little bit more put more VRAM on their cards, or you know, deliver a better price for these existing cards. As long as everybody still continues to defend this behavior and continue to purchase these products from Nvidia, this is never going to change. Now, if you look over to AMD and you see the and you see how they've been building out their cards for this generation since the new consoles have launched, they've been putting in more VRAM. They've been bringing more VRAM to their higher end cards, to their lower end cards. You had the 3080 and the 6800 pretty much as like competing against each other, and the 6800 is kind of walking away with that. I mean, the 6800 XT is literally walking away with win after win after win now, due to the fact that VRAM is a lot less on that 3080 10 gig. I'll tell you guys, switching over to AMD has put more things in perspective for me as well. I no longer just look at things from like the, oh my gosh, this is the best, I got to have the best. Like I'm not looking at things like that no more. I don't know, man. I'm becoming PC Master Race. I'm starting to get all nerdy about things, to be completely honest with you, but I don't subscribe. I still don't subscribe to the general wisdom of everything yet. Like I don't. Like there's things that I've seen with my own eyes that makes me question things. And I've always been like that, man. I've always been the kind of person to question everything, and I've always been the kind of person to ask questions that get people talking. All of my content on this channel is always designed to keep you asking questions, to maybe challenge the status quo, to get answers, you know, because there's so much PR marketing out there. When I first started this channel, I was still a little bit naive, man. I was coming in here and I was like, yeah, man, you should get the Xbox Series X because it's better than the PS5. And I was just rattling off all this stuff about Xbox versus PS5. And a lot of that's come true. I mean, all of it was, you know, like, hey, man, Xbox is probably the better platform to be on this generation. And that's more and more, that's starting to be more and more true. You know, PlayStation is going in a completely different way. Xbox is starting to bring that gaming experience to where it's like, yeah, man, this is the ecosystem you want to be in if you want to play games. Whereas PlayStation's, you know, going more toward that games as service type thing, and it's fine. Like, it is what it is. It's console gaming. They're going after the younger generation and stuff. But when it comes to PC, I kind of feel I don't feel like magically AMD is gonna like be like the winner or anything, you know, anytime soon. But there's like, I kind of feel like things are getting a lot more serious for AMD at this point right now. Like I do. I feel like there's, you know, I feel like there's definitely some ground to be made in terms of where people are, especially with their 30 series cards, their 20 series cards, and their 10 series cards, with what AMD has out right now. This is the way I look at it. There's rumors right now about AMD might not come out with high-end cards next generation. So that puts you that kind of puts you in an interesting situation. Do you go with the 4080? You get 16 gigs of VRAM. that might not play out, you know, depending on how much more demanding these games get. You might be okay, you might not. I mean, that's to me, in my mind, that's an extremely high risk, an extremely expensive high risk that I'm not willing to make just yet. But when it comes to the AMD side of things, if you get, you know, a 7900 XTX, you know, you get 24 gigs of VRAM, you still spend less than you would for a 4080, and you still have power or performance easily on par with a 4080. In some cases better, some cases, you know, the 4080 kind of pulls ahead. But you have that longevity because you have the 24 gigs of VRAM that should get you at least till the 9000 series. If AMD doesn't bring out, you know, some, or I mean, even if you don't need it, maybe 7900 XT is the card you need to get you at least 60 frames a second, you know, with all your settings, you know, at 4K throughout this generation, you know, using FSR2 or FSR3 or whatever you got to use. That's kind of the way I'm looking at things now on. Like, I'm not looking at things as like, oh my gosh, I need the best. I'm looking at things as like, how much longer or how long can this last me? I don't want to have to upgrade every generation, guys. Like, I really don't. Like, I want, because I'm still in that console gamer mindset where I want to be able to hang on, like buy a console at the beginning of the generation, have that console go till the end of the generation. That's kind of what I feel like that's kind of where I'm trying to put myself at in the PC space. But I mean, honestly, this generation is completely lopsided. Previously, on console generations, you would start the console generation, the games wouldn't look that great, but they would get better over time. They would start to get better. They would the platform would start to mature. Developers would get better at using the tools, all of that, and the games would get better. Well, we started this generation with games in 4K 60, and now we're back down to 720p, 45 frames a second. And it's kind of weird, man. I don't think we've ever experienced this before. So that either means that they're going to do another mid-gen console refresh, or they're going to do, or we're just going to have to accept that we're not getting 4K going forward from these machines. And that, I mean, well, it'll be a mixture. There'll be third-party games that come out, obviously, that aren't using Unreal Engine 5 and stuff that are still going to be, you know, able to push that 4K 60 frames a second, whatever. Or, and it's kind of one of those things on the PC thing, man, where like I don't want to have to switch out. I just want to have something to give me, you know, enough power to be able to, you know, hit most of those settings most of the time. As long as I can manage that, like I'm pretty okay with that for the most part. Like I'm pretty okay with that. I'm not really in the market to wanting to upgrade all the time, but I mean, at the same time with the channel, that might actually be like, oh yeah, you need to kind of upgrade so that you can stay relevant, stuff like that. And there's a lot of pressure on, you know, on a content creator. It just kind of comes with that, you know. You kind of have the pressure of people wanting to see new things and wanting to be informed, and then you also have the pressure of, you know, of creating content and trying to make yourself happy. So the overall experience going from Nvidia to AMD, and this is where we're gonna get into the part where we're gonna start talking about like the things that you're gonna leave on the table versus the things that you're gonna gain, and if those things that you're leaving on the table are gonna be worth it to you. After 45 days of going through this card and playing with it more regularly, sitting down, you know, checking things out. I was really into checking things out when it first came out, you know, being able to utilize features like VSR, like virtual super resolution, being able to use some of the other, you know, like the Radeon chill, some of those features. There's still the really high power draw when running two screens. You're still at about 90 watts. That hasn't been fixed yet. But this misconception about like the AMD drivers being bad or just being trash, like that's not true. At least in my experience, that's not true. I did have like the screens would turn on and be black or something when I would turn on the PC. Ever since I bought an 8K DisplayPort cable for 2.0 or 2.1 or whatever DisplayPort it is now, I haven't not had that problem, not one time. Everything boots on, comes on just fine now. Haven't had that problem. There's two HDMI or DisplayPort 2.0s or 2.1s on this card, and then there's one regular 1.4 and then an HDMI 2.1. So now that I've got everything and got the actual cables on there, I think it was just like the cable being plugged into the 2.1 or 2.0 that was causing it to have handshake issues, because I haven't had that problem since. But as far as drivers and software and setting everything up on the AMD card, very very easy to get into. I like the fact that I have more control over my color palette now. That to me is extremely important, always has been. I am able to get a better looking image quality on like HDR TVs and stuff now, while being able to adjust like the vibrancy of my colors and stuff like that, as well as just the overall HDR image in my eye looks better. That I know that's very subjective, and people are like, you don't know what you're talking about. You can make the settings look exactly like that on an Nvidia card. Okay, maybe you can. And eventually someday I'll come back to an Nvidia card and we'll test these things out, and we'll find out. Like, we'll find out. I'll see if there's a way for me to set it up, because I'm not here to give you fake or misleading information whatsoever. Like, I hope you understand that. Like, I'm not here to mislead you or steer you away from Nvidia. Like, I do, and I'll be honest with you, I do have a bad taste in my mouth for Nvidia right now because of the way the 30 series cards turned out. If you shouldn't have to buy a high end, you shouldn't have to go out and buy like the high end card just to get enough VRAM to play games longer than 2 years. Like, you shouldn't have to do that. They should have brought more VRAM to those cards so that they're a more viable option for longevity. So yes, I do have a bad taste in my mouth. And that does suck, because a lot of my content, a lot of the stuff that I put out is really going to reference that, is like really going to show that. Like, I'm going to be, the more things about the AMD cards that make me happy, the more in my head it's going to make the Nvidia card look bad. And that's not the case. Nvidia's not bad. They do make good products, but they but they also pull some PlayStation 5 nonsense with their customer base that consistently leaves them in a state of like anxiety over gaming, and that sucks. I don't like that. I don't like people feeling like they are like they got to upgrade all the time. Like FOMO was so bad, especially on the internet. FOMO is in our day in life nowadays. It's bad. Like there's psychologists that are out there trying to help these companies figure out ways to make you want to buy things and always be broke. So we gotta kind of be a little bit smarter about that. And Nvidia, I think they take advantage of that a little bit too much. I'm not saying it's bad. Obviously they got to make money, but at the end of the day, it is damaging to people's psyche to always be in a constant state of like, oh yeah, I gotta, in a constant state of FOMO. But some of the things that you'd be giving up on the Nvidia side, like obviously you're going to give up DLSS, DLSS 3. DLSS. You're going to give that up, and so far, I do too. Also think it looks, not like leaps and bounds better than FSR2 or XESS, but it is nice. I will tell you though that I do kind of feel like turning on DLSS on that 3080 card versus turning on FSR on the 3060 Ti before I did anything with the memory. I will tell you that I do kind of feel like the 3060 Ti with DLSS on, and like a frame counter, I do believe that FSR and XESS both are a little bit more stable than what DLSS was. Especially like just kind of letting them play out and stuff, but that could have been just due to the 3060 Ti And I noticed the same problem with the 3080, but I did have two different sticks of memory in that, toward the end. So that that could have caused like an instability problem, with the memory wise. But overall, DLSS is still looked at as the standard. So that's one thing you're going to leave on the table. You are going to leave, you know, better ray tracing performance on the table. I suppose. I mean, you look at the frame rates and stuff, and you see like the frame rates, a little bit better on the Nvidia cards while utilizing ray tracing. But the rasterized power, when you look at like something like a 4090 versus a 7900 XTX, or the 4080 versus the 7900 XT, man, they're pretty close. They're actually really close. And you would think for the extra money that, hell yeah, Nvidia had better had better have, at least a little bit better ray tracing than what you can get on an AMD card right now. Like, you would better hope that. So ray tracing performance with Nvidia graphics cards, even as low as like the last gen cards, still does seem to be performing better. If ray tracing is your thing, maybe get yourself something, an Nvidia stack with more VRAM, because you're gonna need it. So I would recommend that. Extremely, like a lot, anything above 12 gigabytes with 320-bit bus, especially if you want to utilize stuff like 4K and stuff. But overall, I don't really think you're leaving a lot, like maybe some there is like an issue trying to use AMD graphics card if you have an LG C2 and you're putting your TV into 21:9 or 32.9, extra widescreen or whatever. You will run into that with certain games that are not built to utilize widescreen. You are going to have those games that are not going to you're going to have those games that are not going to run right on that. They're going to lock them to 60 frames. You're going to get screen tearing. So that's something that you're able to do with an Nvidia card, no problem. But other than that, I haven't really ran into a lot of other problems. Like those are they're few and far between. And the longer I sit here on the AMD card, the easier it gets to not be worried about what Nvidia is doing. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I know these videos get a little bit long, a little bit winded, but I'm just trying to give you the best information I can, and I'm just trying to help you make decisions that are going to help you play games longer without the need to upgrade and always feel like you're not doing very well. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching. This is getting pretty long, so we'll see you guys later.